I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 131, printed in Part A of House Report number 118-261, offered by Mr. Westerman of Arkansas.
Pursuant to House Resolution 838, the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Westerman, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arkansas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield myself such time as I may consume. And I want to again commend my colleague from Idaho, Mr. Simpson, for the great work that he and his committee did in giving us this appropriation bill, and also commend the minority and everyone who spent so much time on the floor working through these amendments. And I'm sure everybody will be glad to know this is the last one. It's a great one, and I hope everybody will support my amendment. I obviously support my amendment, which prohibits funds from being used to implement the Biden administration's ocean justice strategy, which undermines the intent of the Ocean Policy Committee by forcing so-called environmental justice principles into the federal government's role in ocean economic activities. In 2018, then President Trump signed Executive Order 13840, which established the Ocean Policy Committee. The Ocean Policy Committee, co-chaired by CEQ and the Office of Science and Technology Policy, was created to focus on growing the ocean economy, prioritizing scientific research, coordinating resources and data sharing, and engaging with stakeholders. The committee was codified into law through the National Defense Authorization Act of FY 2021. The Ocean Policy Committee should be working on important issues such as leveraging resources and expertise to maximize the effectiveness of federal investments in ocean research. Unfortunately, this administration has chosen to advance a misguided agenda that is not focused on the founding tenets of the Ocean Policy Committee to grow the ocean economy. Instead, it is pushing concepts like the Ocean Justice Strategy, which forces environmental justice principles into the federal government's ocean activities. Ocean justice or environmental justice should not be used to hijack legitimate work that benefits the American people. It cannot and should not become a driving force and detrimental tool to impede our federal resources management. For those reasons, I support and urge my colleagues to join me in supporting this amendment, and I reserve.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Maine seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I claim time in opposition.
Gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you very much. As far as I can tell, this is just another attack on environmental justice and another way to go out at it. The Council on Environmental Quality is coordinating the development of an ocean justice strategy that will propose equitable and just practices to advance safety, health, and prosperity for communities residing near the ocean, the coasts, and the Great Lakes. So this amendment seeks to block that strategy. Coastlines are home to approximately 40% of the United States population. Unfortunately, coastal communities do not share equitably in the benefits provided by the ocean or equitably bear the burden of the negative impacts of human activities associated with the ocean, such as climate change, coastal flooding, and other threats. Environmental justice ensures that all Americans receive the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards. This amendment is just another way to attack minority groups at all costs and return the United States to a time when environmental discrimination was the norm. I oppose the amendment, and I reserve.
Gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Mr. Chair, the Ocean Policy Committee should focus on addressing the issues that it was actually created to address, most importantly, streamlining federal coordination. This administration's push of this ocean justice strategy is just another example of unchecked bureaucrats forcing their agenda on Americans and increasing red tape. My amendment stops them from moving forward. Our ocean economy is as diverse as the ocean itself, and there is no one-size-fits-all approach to managing it. It's the problem we have with federal programs is they take a different course from how Congress intended for them to go. This isn't cutting funds from the Ocean Policy Committee, it's just forcing the Ocean Policy Committee to do the job that they were established to do without adding unnecessary burdens to their work. Again, I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting the amendment, and I yield back my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentlewoman from Maine is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, I'm kind of caught in this challenge of not understanding exactly what it is that my colleagues don't like about the term environmental justice, or in this case, ocean justice. It seems like justice is a word that we're very comfortable with in a patriotic way, that everyone understands justice is important in this country. And I would say, as a member who I believe represents as much coastline as anybody in here, a very coastal state that is extremely impacted by the challenges that are going on in the ocean, sea level rise, extreme storms, and has to deal with these questions, I think it's totally appropriate to have a justice strategy in making sure that we have equitability in how we take care of people. If you live in a community where it is under-resourced, and you're impacted by these ocean storms that come at us with total surprise. It could be a winter storm, a November storm, a nor'easter as we call them, or a hurricane in the southern part of the country. And there aren't resources to rebuild. Perhaps sea level rising is making it so that your community needs to be moved. I was talking last night about the 31 native communities in Alaska that have to be moved because of sea level rise. Well, if you don't have a justice lens, somebody might turn around and just say, I'm sorry, this community isn't valuable enough. You don't have the resources. Your people can't move their own homes. You can't deal with rebuilding the coastal protections, so the money is going somewhere else, to a wealthier community, to some place where we think people matter more. Those decisions are critical decisions about how we spend our federal funds, about how we make sure the work we do is equitable. And climate change is having a huge impact on life on the ocean. I do not want to criticize my colleague. I'm sure he's put this forward in good faith, but the last I saw, Arkansas doesn't have an ocean. And you're trying to make policy for those of us who represent ocean communities in the east, west, south, throughout this country, the 40% of the United States population that lives on the ocean, and these are critical strategies for us. We don't need to make the same mistakes that we made in the past with not having a lens of environmental justice. Why in the world we want to turn back and have discrimination and make bad policy? Why in the world, when we're facing some of the most severe crises we've ever seen, hurricanes that come on us with no warning, extreme storms in the winter, extreme storms at times of year we never expected them. I can go on for much more time than I have to tell you about what has happened in my own state and the challenges people are worried about sea level rise, about the ocean impact of storms. And this would take away the opportunity to look forward on that and make sure that our funding is equitable, that all communities are taken care of, that all parts of the country, particularly those rural areas that probably he represents and I represent that are often under-resourced, are thought about as well. So yet again, this is a misguided amendment. People are going after a kind of language that either they just don't want to say or somehow don't believe in, or want to bring us back to a time when we just had discrimination in our federal policy and how we spent our federal funds. So it's a misguided amendment. It's a bad idea. I oppose it and I yield back.